Welcome to the RiteTone. My name is Anthony Aris-Osula. I am Tone and I'm sometimes right. That's what I think anyway. This is a show. This is where you can literally, this is my first live stream. First time I'm going to have a guest. I'm really excited about it. I go way back in time with this dude and you'll love him as, you know, and appreciate him as I do, but don't tell him that. Otherwise I get a big swollen, shiny bald head. But I love storytelling. I'm a storytelling connoisseur, all things from real life stories in terms of zeitgeist, culture, what's going on, you know, the left and right, war, all that sort of conflict and how explaining that in terms of narrative and how that flows and seeps into culture. And of course, popular culture itself, movies primarily, but a little bit of TV and a little bit of comics and things like that. Anything in that I kind of blend together that is storytelling that I really love. I will always be right. That doesn't sound good. I'll always have my opinion. I'll always be honest. I'll always be direct. I can't be cancelable because I'm not really that big at the moment, but I will try and stay loyal to who I am when I do grow. Grow with me. Join the tribe of RiteTone. And I'll always be honest. And I'm no shill. I'm not owned by any corporate. Certainly not Disney. I'd love that. Ho-ho! Send me those Disney checks, please. And I still won't shill because I've got integrity. I've got integrity, y'all. I stand by my opinions. I'll die on that hill even if I'm wrong. But I'm open-minded. And we need more of that on this internet space where we can disagree, but respectfully. We can have our opinions. We don't need to, I feel a little bit like Michael Jackson in Be There. No one wants to be defeated. Stopping two tribes, two gangs having a bit of a fisticuff. No war. Peace, man. We have the strong opinions and we'll battle it out in a jovial, light-hearted way. Have our opinions and just stick to it, really. So this is the first time I'm inviting a guest and I'm doing a live stream, but it's not going to be the last time because I actually like having a conversation. I love talking to you guys, but I love talking to somebody else and you watch us talk. That sounds a bit weird. Anyway, without further ado, I want to bring in my good long-time friend from back in the day. We go back over 30 years, back in time. The one and only, I'm going to call him Mr. Rowan. Are you there, sir? Mr. Rowan, are you free?
I'm free. Number two.
I'm free.
Number two, not number one.
Number two. Number one. This is a little bit of an in-joke because I outed him. I questioned his Star Wars fidelity and loyalty. I was like, I'm numero uno, and you're like a distant star system, far from into the other galaxy, kind of. Yeah. Only joking.
You're definitely a bigger
fan. Prove your Star Wars fandom now.
But it's like saying,
I think the way
it's like saying you're 100 and I'm only 98. Oh, you're just a 98. How dare you?
2%, Oh, hurry up and squat so you can get to 100. And obviously you can see Rowan has his Star Trek background. Is that Kirk and Spock behind you, Rowan?
Use the force.
Yeah, live long and prosper. Yeah, no. Are you sure you're not on one of the cast of the Acolyte? Remember he said he gets all this stuff wrong.
Man, I'm definitely not on the Acolyte.
Yeah.
That demographic.
You are kryptonite to the Acolyte. Speaking of which, we spoke beforehand, and there was something that you brought up about the about new Disney Star Wars, particularly the Acolyte. Can you remember what it was?
It's. I think, like you said once, it's like Star Wars is for kids, and like, for example, the kind of the Force. Using the Force, like so Obi-Wan Kenobi says, these aren't the droids you're looking for, and they don't really do Force.
Jedi mind trick.
But one of my favourite moments in Star Wars is Episode 7, where Rey pulls the lightsaber past Kylo Ren's shoulders, and that's proper Disney Star Wars, and that's brilliant. But it reminds me of like Silent Bob from Clerks, where he's trying to force move the pencil, and it's like Kevin Smith was extrapolating and taking the Mickey out of Star Wars, and now we've gone full on Star Wars, and it's kids. My kids love it. You've got kids. Kids are grown up now, but you've had small children. You know that how much they get out of young doing that, and Kylo Ren, where he's pulling down the ship, and it's more of a visual medium, and I really like it. I mean, I think it's a little bit silly because I like the metaphor stroke, but it's Disney and it's
Yeah.
good. And
I think you make fair points, especially with the whole, we've got to remember the kiddos. Excuse me, you've got to remember the kiddlywinks. But I think when it was Jay and when Kevin Smith as Silent Bob was doing that, it was a fun callback. It was, hey, remember that thing we all liked? It was a member berry. Reference. Remember that thing that's cool? Remember Star Wars? And I kind of miss those days when you loved something and you connected with other people that loved it, and you talked about what you loved about a thing, not how much you hate it and detest it, and it's basically gone downhill.
Good point. Yeah.
But I think with the things like the force push, the force pull, I do agree with the visual medium thing, but I think there's a little aspect to the creatives, and I think you saw this in Robert Rodriguez's Book of Boba Fett, where it felt like someone being a fan of something, remembering what was cool about it from childhood, but exaggerating it according to their sort of half memory, and then adding their own spin on it. So it was like, yeah, playing with my toys. Like, I did a video where it's like the playing with a sandbox concept, where it's like, hey, I'm playing my version of whatever, come and watch me do it. So I think this is the first time really where, like, I couldn't imagine Kevin Smith making a Star Wars film. I think Kevin Smith is hilarious, and he knows his stuff. He knows his pop culture references, stuff like that. I would never. I mean, I struggled with his He-Man, to be honest. To be blunt, but I couldn't imagine. No, and I don't think he's lined up to make a Star Wars movie. But I just mean that as a point of, you can be a fan of something. I'm a fan, but I don't think I'd make a particularly great Star Wars TV show or movie. And I think there's a point where this is the first time in history, this era, obviously not the first one, the Acolyte's not the first, but it's the first time that anyone but George has been seriously at the helm creatively and making Star Wars live action. Dave Filoni is like the Padawan. He's like the Anakin to Obi-Wan of Lucasfilm. And Leslie Headland is an outsider. She's an outsider that came and pitched her idea to Lucasfilm. And Kathleen Kennedy was like, yes. And there we go. But your quick thoughts on that. And then we're going to revisit Star Wars in a little bit. But your quick thoughts on that.
It's hard because the majority of content that's put out now is building on existing IP, like the Russo brothers, the MCU, Star Wars. Everything is new IP. It isn't new IP. You're building on an existing property, a comic book, a book, or something like that. And it works because they're the ones that do best at the box office. So the creative process of taking someone else's work and then changing the format or adding or additioning it is very different to creating your own content. I mean, you wrote a book, and it's about your own life. But imagine trying to write a book about someone else's life and then interviewing. It's a completely different process, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I agree with you, mate. All right, then let's dig in. Let's tuck in to the main dinner. So we're going to talk about, first thing, I'll just run through what we're going to talk about, and then we'll start talking about it. So first, we're going to talk about review of Deadpool and Wolverine, what we thought. So spoiler alert, there will be spoilers in this. Then we're going to touch on our general thoughts about the MCU. General thoughts about the MCU in that same section. We're going to return to a galaxy far, far away, and we'll battle it out, dark side, light side, about our positions on current Disney Star Wars, particularly the Acolyte.
You implying that I am dark side? Yes,
you're dark. I'm light side. Because otherwise it would sound racial, if I'm dark, Diversity, Rowan, come on. Then we're gonna do an update on San Diego Comic Con. Neither of us went, but we watched like the majority of the world. What we think about some of the announcements and stuff like that. And then finally, we're gonna probably touch on a little bit of briefly the concept of culture wars, just what we think and how we find that, particularly how that's affecting the things that we love. So we're not talking about individual politics or beliefs, nothing like that, but more about how we feel sometimes these arguments online, how they filter into the things that we love. And then Rowan might throw a curveball and we'll end with that. So can I just read something first, Ro, that sets us up regarding, no, actually, That's the wrong thing. That'll be the next section. What I'll do is I'll just do this. I'll just show.
Hey, there it is.
Deadpool and Wolverine. There we are.
The NSYNC.
The best I am at what I do, bub.
All I see on social media is people dancing like Wolverine. My God, the marketing. You know, one thing I will say, Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, like the marketing machine. Like I thought The Rock was good at marketing. These two have been on every radio show, every TV show for a solid 3 weeks, and it's going to result in the biggest film of the year.
Oh, one sec.
And they deserve it because for our marketing, 100% best marketing I've ever seen on film.
Yeah, just repeat that point there, and we had a bit of a technical hitch.
Yeah, you can't get away from the marketing on these films. These two have been on every radio show, every TV talk show. They're hosted. They're on Kimmel doing it themselves. They do Lad Bible, everything. Like anything that is going to promote a film, they're on it. And they look like they're genuinely best friends because they're not annoyed with each other, and you can tell it's genuine. And Ryan Reynolds, there was one I saw one the other day. he was asking Hugh Jackman to talk about his dad dying, and halfway through the conversation he took a phone call from Blake Lively. I thought, whoa, they are willing to go there for like sort of marketing. It's like you like Hugh Jackman's dead dad. It's like, bloody hell, it's crazy.
I think that's the advantage of them being so close, because I mean they've been friends for years, as you know, as you rightly said, and I've been watching like different interviews and them referencing each other or different opportunities we meet together. So I think there's definitely a comfort factor in them being able to go there, like you said in an interview where he's talking about his deceased father and and the other one calling the missus. It's like they've wanted to do this proper for years. Do you remember the Deadpool, the X-Men Origins Wolverine?
I've seen them all. I've seen every film. I've seen them all 3 or 4 times. Yeah.
Did you I never saw it in the cinema. Yeah, but you know what the crazy thing is, yeah, I hope I don't get busted for this, but I remember I never saw X-Men Wolverine in the cinema. I saw it the work print. Remember that famous leak where the whole movie was released online?
Yeah, I remember.
And it's mad because I couldn't believe it was when I watched it. I was like, is it really this crap? And I thought some of it was like, oh, it's a very early print, which is why the effects and stuff were dodgy. But no, it was the actual same movie that came out. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed for them.
Wolverine's claws came out in the bathroom and it looked awful. Was that the one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Nintendo,
bad, wasn't it?
80s, Nintendo 64 graphic CGI claws.
Yeah.
Eesh. So yeah, I think with Ryan Reynolds, the chemistry between him and Hugh Jackman is mental. They've really got it going on. But what's your overall thoughts of the movie? I'll give your overall reaction out of the cinema reaction.
Right. So for me, we'll come on to this later, but Marvel peaked with what's the last one? Endgame? Is that last?
Endgame.
The one where they
Avengers.
Yeah.
I love you 3000. I'm Iron Man.
Yeah. They've gone downhill since then. It's still been good films, but I haven't enjoyed anything. I absolutely love this film. I'm not saying it's a good film. There's a difference between I recognise films that aren't brilliant, but I can enjoy this. I thought this was a good film, not brilliant, good film that I absolutely loved. And I didn't get all those comic book references when he was on the cross and when it was motorcycle and the midget and spoilers, obviously. I didn't get any of those references. I had to look them afterward. But I knew they were a reference, and that was enough for me. It was like, I know this is some sort of reference. I've seen something, there's stuff in the background on a shelf when he's interviewing with the chauffeur driver, Jon Favreau. When he's interviewing
Jon Favreau, yeah.
There's something in the shelf in the background that's a reference. It's like, brilliant. Love that old stuff.
Yeah.
I've heard some people say they thought the plot was a bit convoluted. I think it's a really simple plot to follow. Which is good. It's got good acting. It's got great cameos. It's got the best action I've seen in a long time since Endgame. 9 out of 10. Brilliant.
So for me, everything you've said, I agree. I particularly love the callbacks to the different Wolverines because obviously they played on the variants being different classic interpretations of Wolverine in the comics, which were all legit. And I think with a midget, You probably, I know you, Ron, you do your research. So obviously the midget Wolverine, spoiler alerts, is what his real size is in the comics. And it's just referencing how ridiculous that would be if he was actually that short, being Hugh Jackman. I thought the film, this is going to sound really weird. I'll give an analogy. I really love a roast dinner, but a gourmet cooked roast dinner. I go around Jamie Oliver's house or Gordon Ramsay, come here, Tone, sit down, me old mate, have a nice hot roast. And then someone brings the cheapest Aldi, Lidl, sorry if I'm sound like a snob, but really cheap, sugary ketchup and just pours it all over the meal. And I don't like cheap, sugary ketchup. So I'm tucking in and I can taste.
It's still a roast.
That's what I'm saying. I can taste the roast underneath, but I'm struggling with the sugary, and it's like it's making me for each time. And for me, and what I mean by that, to make it very plain, I can recognize it's a good film, but I find you know me, Rowan, I'm a God botherer. The three major things that I find that I struggle with, it's really violence that's very vindictive, like really spiteful violence, foul-mouthed, like a real potty mouth, every other word an F-bomb, blah, 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 and sex, like sort of crude, sexual kind of crude jokes. This movie had all three.
Have you seen that stat? There's a stat that says there's been like 198 F-bombs in the MCU, one in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and 197 in this film.
I know. Record breakers. Well done for breaking a record that we didn't know we needed. And I think for that, so for me, I'm not a prude. You know me. I'll watch Tarantino movies that have all three, but this is the degree that they have this. It felt like, you think that we're going to water down Deadpool because of Feige in the MCU? Hold our beer. And then there's literally just showing off that how much they could get away with. And Feige's probably thinking, this is great that they have a perception of Marvel. And now we're going to really show that we're on top of things. I don't think it needed all that ketchup. I get it. If you love ketchup on the meal, that's the thing a lot of people come to Deadpool for. So I don't blame the movie for being what it is. I just felt, for me, I had to enjoy the bits where I could, but the overall meal was just tainted with the R rating.
Yeah. What did you think of the scene where it was like dismantling Wolverine's skeleton and killing people, was it? I mean, what's your take on that?
I didn't have so much a problem with that because obviously there's the whole concept of desecration, but we've established that Wolverine is, it's an adamantium skeleton, and I found the joke funny around the concept that we're not, we're not gonna mess with Logan and its perfect ending. We're gonna keep that movie as sacred. Yeah. Actually, we're gonna literally dig up the Logan of that movie skeleton. Yeah,
but I thought that's what I want out of a Deadpool. I want them to dig up the body of Wolverine, dismantle it, and start stabbing people in the groin. And it's like that's what it has to be. It can't just go to there. It has to go all the way up and go past it, and that's what it did. And I think you're right. It's a gourmet meal covered in cheap ketchup, but it still tastes good.
But would you think it would taste? Here's the thing, because a lot of people, and I do put my feelers out for those. A lot of the the film pundit community online are loving this. And John Campier, for example, he's made a point, and I kind of agree in the past, that the idea that Deadpool can only be R-rated, there's no way it can be done. I think that if you took away a lot of the sex jokes and the language, and I'm not saying you should. I understand people go to Deadpool for a certain palette, but I don't think Ryan Reynolds would be less funny. I don't think Hugh Jackman would be less badass. I don't think the fight choreography, I don't think you'd lose so much. Didn't they do like a Deadpool Christmas one for Deadpool 2 where they made it PG-13?
I think what you gain was, especially with Wolverine, so when he literally chopped Sabretooth's head off, You can't do that in normal MCU, and I think it adds so much. Like, Hugh Jackman doesn't need to swear as Wolverine, but the violence needs to be there, and you can't have that. Deadpool, on the other hand, I think you can fit him into an MCU film with a couple of rude jokes that don't have swear words and a couple of innuendo, and his Ryan Reynolds personality will carry him through a PG-13 film. Ryan Reynolds not a problem, but I don't think Wolverine can go back to being PG-13, and that's why I think at the end of the film they kind of wrote him out, because you don't need Wolverine anymore. There are so many equally as interesting superheroes that you can have films based around. We'll talk to this about in a minute, like Doctor Doom and Robert Downey Jr. We don't need Tony Stark. We need good actors. Hugh Jackman. The reason Wolverine's so good, he's a great actor. The reason Deadpool's so good is because Ryan Reynolds is a funny actor. He's not a good actor. He's a funny actor. The reason Scarlet Witch I think is good is because there's another good actor. Chris Evans, good actor. Pedro Pascal, good actor. Like, you need good actors. They can make boring characters come to life.
But you do know they're going to recast Wolverine. You didn't. That's a cash cow character. So I mean,
Kevin, I seen a quote where they said Ryan Reynolds said there's only one person who can play Wolverine, and 100% agree. Just retire him. The character's not interesting enough that he needs to be in all the time. Just leave it be. Move on. Get another character.
I disagree, because they're finally, the X-Men has come home to the MCU, and you can't do an X-Men, especially a true, proper, not beholden by Fox and their missteps, an MCU X-Men. You can't do it without Logan. And I think it's going to be different, because obviously, like, you mentioned in the movie where it does the different variants of Wolverine, of Logan, and you had like the little guy one and stuff like that. It's essentially obviously letting you know, like the Marvel films have with the multiverse, that there are other versions of the characters that look different as well as those that look the same. They're going to obviously go a different route. Yeah, that was pretty.
Come on, man. Yes. Yes, he's a good actor.
He looked cool. I must admit, he looked cool in that scene. I wouldn't. If you told me, I'd be no way. You can't have Henry Cavill. And here's the thing, mate. Actors are actors, and they can completely disappear. Exactly. Have we not learnt from Heath Ledger?
Yeah.
Oh no, he can't be the Joker. It can't be that. And it's like, and then when Joaquin Phoenix, it sounds like I'm clearing my throat. When Joaquin Phoenix was cast, obviously as a Joker, people are like, no, we've already got Heath Ledger, and then he crushed it as the Joker. So actors are actors, takes are takes.
No one else can play Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think Ewan McGregor's done as good a job, if not better, as Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's not
I'd say as good.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And
he's a good actor.
Yeah.
Hayden Christensen had been a better actor, Anakin could have been the ultimate villain in all of Star Wars.
I don't actually believe it. I mean, there's other things he was in, and we can get to there. Actually, let's hold that. I'll just say it's one point.
Trash.
Hayden Christensen is not a bad actor. I think what it was is that a lot of the prequels, Lucas was less interested in the humans in it and everything else than the ideas. But anyway, we don't want to digress. Back to
was it Jake Lloyd? Was Jake Lloyd the little boy?
Yeah, young Lloyd. What about him?
Didn't he go off the rails, or did he have all right? He was in a Kevin Smith film, wasn't he?
Yeah, he didn't do anything again after that. He kind of went off. His life went a bit difficult.
I'm thinking of the kid from Terminator 2. He ended up being awful, didn't he?
Edward Furlong. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is genuine, folks. This is what happens when two mates get together. It goes on different divergent tracks. But anyway, we're going to open that Galaxy Faraway box.
You didn't like the crash, which I kind of understand. I thought it was the best thing MCU have done since Endgame. I love it.
I think I can agree with that. I think what I did love about it, because I don't want to be a hater, I want to be a lover too, is Ryan Reynolds is effortlessly funny. Hugh Jackman is definitively Wolverine. Though I do think someone else can do a different take on his character. I did love the bombast of it. It was just full on fun. It felt like obviously like an 80s, those buddy movies. There was a lot of investment. The action was fun. It just was a good time. I loved it. Cassandra Nova.
They were, because that's her pronouns is they. Yeah, there we go, they. Yeah. Is
Yeah,
that
is she
is
all right?
that Diana from? Is that Diana from?
Yeah,
Uh,
from
the Netflix
The Crown.
Royals or whatever. The Crown. Is she the?
From The
Is
Crown,
that
yeah.
Diana from the Crown? Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Diana,
she was amazing. She was
Diana
brilliant.
Spencer. I think she was great for the little role that she had, and I think, to be honest, Marvel's always had a villain problem in that they don't care too much about the villains, except for Thanos having much airtime. For the little amount of time what she was given, I think she did a good job. I do feel like this movie was never going to have a big emphasis on a villain because it was too much of a bromance.
You don't need them. Yeah, it's not. It's a bromance film. You don't need a big villain. A big villain would have taken screen time away from those two, and that's what you paid your £10 to have, isn't it? See those two bantering.
And as this is a spoiler review, I mean, Chris Evans, what a sport! I saw it coming. You know, the whole.
If you didn't see it coming, you're an idiot. But it's so good when it happened.
Yeah, it was the way it was just handled, where Deadpool's like, "You wait, man, we got, he's the symbol of America and the Avengers. 3, 2, 1, flame on."
Did you know any of the cameos and spoilers going in, or were you completely?
No, I kept. The only one I knew about was X-23, which I don't get.
But that wasn't really kept secret. They kind of publicised that, didn't they? So that wasn't.
But only the. Yeah, but Rob, they only publicised that in a TV spot or trailer, just about a week or two before the film's release. So I was like, why did you... No one knew. Like, she denied that she was in it. So why are you going to make her lie about it and then at the last minute? Huh?
Yeah.
So who was your favourite appearance? The cameos. Let's do the cameos then, the variants.
The thing is, Wesley Snipes is his acting skills of Wayne. So visually, he was good. The Gambit, who played Gambit? Channing Tatum.
Oh, Channing Tatum.
Good. But his accent was too thick, and it was a joke. But then it became annoying. Elektra, I love Jennifer Garner. I love the line about not Deadpool. Who's it? Ben Affleck.
Daredevil.
Daredevil being dead. So don't worry about it. Because they're divorced. That was quite funny. I think Henry Cavill was the best cameo by far. Because you were expecting, they were Wolverine, and he turns around, it's Henry Cavill, it's like, oh, that's so good. And then followed by Chris Evans.
Yeah, and then when Deadpool's like, don't worry, we'll treat you better than the other people down the street. DC.
Was Ray Park there as Toad?
No.
Was that Ray Park?
Nope. The only Fox X character that was brought back outside of the main cameos was Tyler Mane as Sabretooth. All the others were knockoffs, so it wasn't Vinnie Jones as Juggernaut. It wasn't the Right Lady as Deathstrike.
Vinnie Jones would have done it. Vinnie Jones definitely would have done it. That must have been him wanting too much money or something.
Yeah, because he was asked. I saw an interview ages ago when they said they asked him back, and he was like, "Nah," because obviously, I don't think. I think my favorite of those cameos, I think. Yeah, seeing Blade. I really like Channing Tatum's Gambit because that's obviously an inside baseball joke because for years he's wanted to do a Gambit movie and there was loads of talks and he got so close. But no cigar. So
they made it really badass. Like he was killing everyone left, right and centre. I thought, wow, this is pretty good. Because X-Men 97. The cards
were good, man.
He was awesome in X-Men 97.
Oh, I loved X-Men 97. I mean, I've never been a massive Gambit fan.
You did a whole podcast on X-Men 97.
Oh, that'll be the next one. But I think seeing Gambit portrayed, because obviously Taylor Kitsch portrayed him in that dreadful X-Men Origins Wolverine movie. I think seeing Channing Tatum, the way that the powers, like the way the cards were glowing with kinetic energy when dashed and the staff, it made you. It to the point where it made you think. I would watch it. I would watch Channing Tatum do if they wanted to spin off a a Gambit movie. Obviously, just make it more serious and tone the accent.
I think this was just putting people in and looking at reaction. It's like, what's the reaction to this? What's the because if you get a really good social media reaction, just commission a film, do 150 million quick Gambit film, knock it out in a year and a half. It will make its money back because it's reasonably popular. It will go on the coattails of this film. It was an exercise in gauging the interest. Like I reckon the reason they put Wesley Snipes in is like, is there still demand for Wesley Snipes as Blade? Probably not. but it's worth putting him in. See what the online reaction is. Again, with
See,
Elektra, they probably put Elektra in, see what people say about it. If they don't like her, we won't do a film. If they do like her, she needs the cash, we'll make a film with her.
See, I see what you're saying, and I can imagine a scenario where that's plausible, but I disagree. I don't think that they did it with any belief that these actors can be reused, because I think Blade, they ain't bringing Wesley's ass back as Blade for multiple reasons. And I don't think they want to go back. This was a swan song for the Fox X-Men and comic book.
The unthinkable can happen now.
It's different. I think it's different. It's different though. I think they could bring him back in a moment. Like Secret Wars is going to be the ultimate variant multiverse sort of story. So at present, but not as a full-time gig. Because I think no one's asking for Jennifer Garner as Elektra. No one's asking, Chris Evans isn't going to come back as double duty. He can't anyway. Because spoiler, his character's now dead. Johnny Storm in the Fox version. I think it was a nice, fun moment that particularly because Ryan Reynolds and Wesley Snipes fell out during I think Blade 3. So, and there was a little wink to that where it was like, Deadpool made a little cracked a joke about that. So I think it was genius seeing Blade, especially as he's the one, and also acknowledge, Rowan, that Wesley Snipes' Blade started off the modern superhero comic book, or not superhero, but Blade's kind of a superhero, but the comic book renaissance in '98. Even to the point where outside the sort of the more comic book renaissance really started with Blade in the late 90s. Obviously it blew up with MCU with Iron Man, but so Iron Man is a marker. I've got a video that I'm going to release at some point where Iron Man is definitely the marker of the comic book movie as the staple, as the juggernaut that it is. But don't sleep on Wesley, man. But anyway, what is your thoughts of like the impact of the movie? Yeah, I think there is something actually. There is. Let me just go to this. There is something.
I don't think you watch the film cast anymore. Do you like the podcast? You don't watch that?
Oh no, /Filmcast. I haven't seen it in ages.
Yeah, so they do something called the Summer Movie Wager, where they predict which is going to be the biggest box office, and it's normally, what's the new Pixar one? I've been to bloody cinema to see it. Inside Out 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's Pixar. That's Pixar's comeback. So Pixar are back, but I think Deadpool's going to overtake it. Yeah, look, box office records, because everyone's talking about this. Friends, everyone I know is going to see it. It's one of these films where you don't have to think. You go and see it. You enjoy it. You don't have to wonder about what makes storyline and the media push that they've done. You can't get away from it. If you're on Instagram, TikTok, any sort of social media platforms, you're going to see Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman having fun on a talk show or Lad by or something, and you're going to want to see this. I think it could end up to be the biggest grossing film of the year, and I think it'll be number 3 after Endgame and Infinity, whatever it's called.
Why do you feel this film has struck gold where many haven't?
It's marketing. It's marketing. Look at that picture. Red versus white, nice contrast colours. Hugh Jackman is a nice person. Ryan Reynolds is a nice person. There's no scandals. They're both nice people. They go well on talk shows. They go on every talk show, and people. I think every year people want to see one or two films. Like me and you, I watch 100+ films a year. Most people only want to see 3 or 4 new films, and they want to see these sort of films. I don't think it's a trend. I don't think you can extrapolate and say, well, that means the MCU's back and Marvel versus what is going to be this. Whatever. It doesn't mean anything. It just means it's a good film that people like. And this is where I think movie studios get, and they have to because of their job, they have to look at analysis and data and work out. This is why Pixar failed. Pixar, they couldn't work out why their films weren't doing well, so they did another Monsters Inc. Then they did Inside Out 2.
Which went,
they're doing it.
Which went so much against their.
I saw a trailer for Moana 2.
I know, right? And the thing is, with Pixar, it went really against their brand, because Pixar their brand has been innovation. Their brand has been original storytelling and great new movies, stories.
Monsters Inc. was new IP. New IP. Yeah, new stories. Like, obviously, they milk toys. Are they doing?
I think so. But I think John Lasseter was quite against sequels originally. Yeah. Before he was ousted, he was like, "No, we're going to make new stories and not go down the whole, rinsing out our back catalogue." But let me quickly, you might not be able to see it because I've made it a bit too small. Sorry about that. But it says that with the Deadpool Wolverine have broke several box office records so far. I'll just read them out. I'll just cherry pick.
Yeah. All time, so
6th biggest domestic.
And Avengers. So, that's pretty. Look at that company it's in. Look at the company it's in there. That's impressive.
$211.4 million.
And there's no way it cost the same amount of money to make as any of them films.
No.
It's a cheap film.
So it's above the original Avengers and Black Panther.
I bet you this will be right. I know they're probably both very wealthy men, but this will be the one that pushes both of them into like
don't care money. They call it. It's the biggest R rate. Oh, it's actually number one of the biggest R rating openly, domestically and globally of all time. Which it beat the other Deadpool movies. So
because you're losing out of all the kids, aren't you? This will do on streaming. This will do gangbusters because all the kids will watch it on streaming.
You see, mate, that's one of the problems that I have with this is that I don't want to. I'm not into censorship. I don't want to like police the what people like.
How old your
My son's 14. Yeah, he's 14. I wouldn't have him watch this. Nope.
Would you let him watch this?
No. And I think, and again, the whole, I watched films when I was young far too late. Far too early. I remember being around my old best mate's house as a 9-year-old, and we watched Freddy, like Nightmare on Elm Street films and stuff. They were left on the video counter, like the video shop.
RoboCop when I was 10, that was around a friend's house. RoboCop, that's not.
RoboCop scarred me, mate. I remember my brother-in-law. He used to bring like pirate videos around, to show to the house. Oh, here, Dad, like to his father-in-law, my dad, put it on. It was RoboCop, and so what was that? 87 it came out, so whatever. And I remember from that scene where Murphy gets murdered by the criminals. Give the man a hand, blowing his. That traumatized me for years. When he gets literally shot up.
They ran out of money and they went back and added that scene. They ran out of money. They didn't have that scene and they got some more money and they went back and filmed.
Really? So, I mean, there are certain films I can imagine. I mean, and that sort of... So I do... That's an argument for some of these movies, though, are not really appropriate for very young minds. I think 14 is different. I mean, my son, it's less about the violence for Deadpool and more just about some of the smut and the language. Yeah. But again, I think what I would do, I've been like a youth pastor before. I would have a conversation like I do with my kids. I say, "Oh, this song you're listening to that's like explicit or whatever have you heard? Let's talk about it. Let's discuss it. What do you think about it?" So I wouldn't rule out, like, if he saw it, he got around to seeing it, let's have a discussion about it. But the problem I have is that so many kids love Wolverine. And once you blur that line between allowing the R-rated side of the MCU in, and then you got the characters, they're going to be like, "Oh, there were kids in the cinema seeing Deadpool." These kids have been in the cinema, like way below PG-13. Because parents just think, "Oh, superheroes, they don't read, they don't look up." Some cinemas are not as stringent about checking than others. And I think that's where it gets a bit muddy. That's why I'd never want to hear an R-rated Star Wars. Like, never. I was like, don't do it.
It doesn't need to be R-rated. You don't want it. It does not need it. It doesn't add anything.
So, yeah, I mean, that was from, I think the Hollywood Reporter. So people can check that out if they want to find out the numbers. I'm not a numbers guy, but so you're right, Rowan. Like, it's a good film.
I give it 9 out of 10. What do you give it?
I would give it, I'll score it twice. Out of 10 as a movie, I'd probably give it a 7.5 to an 8 out of 10.
Cool.
For me,
Yeah.
I don't think I would, besides seeing Wolverine in his original classic comic book costume, that.
Oh no, the hood, come on, the hood.
Oh man. Yeah. I didn't know how much I needed that in my life.
That's up there with some of the Star Wars moments. That's up there with some of the Star Wars moments in cinema.
Yeah.
I remember seeing Star Wars films with you and having like these amazing kind of group sort of. Like when I was in the cinema watching that, I was like, not that many people get it because they don't watch X-Men and I haven't read the comics. But for me, it was So what was the second grade you were going to give it? What?
I think for me as my own sensibilities, I would probably give it a 5. So as a movie, 7.5 to 8. But for me, it's not a movie I'm going to be keen to watch again. There are sequences in it. Really I would like clips, but not the whole film. Sorry, what were you saying?
It's really interesting because very rarely do I bring my morals into, because I don't have many morals, to watching a film. I think it's very interesting because you're a person of faith and you have beliefs, and I'd say you're a much more spiritual, moral person. Is that you bring that into your movie viewing, and because I'm like I don't believe in God, and I don't I have strong political views, but rarely do I watch a film that makes me think to change my political views. But you must quite often see media content that challenges your religious beliefs.
All the time. And, maybe we'll bring up the Olympics at some point, maybe not. But I think the biggest struggle is that obviously creatives and people in the comic book industry was countercultural to a degree, from the 60s to 70s. The entertainment industry has always been more progressive, so to speak, and left leaning. And so if you're more religious or slightly conservative, you just made do with it. You're like, okay. It was, I believe in classic liberalism where it's like, you do you do me. Like we'll find the middle ground. Where I think, for example, I'm a God botherer, Christian, but I love Ricky Gervais, and he is a stone cold atheist, and he's made jokes about religion, but I find him funny, and I find
he's very respectful. I would say Ricky Gervais is very respectful of religion and religious people. He's not nasty or vindictive, but there are some comedians who are just like. I love Dave Chappelle. I think he's one of the funniest comedians in the world. He might be up there as my number 2 comedian of all time. But sometimes he's just being nasty and I laugh at the jokes, but I do recognise why people take offence, like certain people in certain categories of sort of life, why they take severe offence to what he says. And I don't think they should take offence to what Ricky Gervais does, because Ricky Gervais has got a proven track record of being a very good, nice person and very respectful, versus Dave Chappelle, who
I think Chappelle has
but they're having to go at someone.
Yeah, let's revisit the end. I think that's a good topic, so that we can revisit that.
Yeah, we'll come back.
I think in short, that because what my answer goes into the culture wars thing, which is this is a little teaser culture wars. I think I can. There's a certain point where I can switch off, or not switch off, but turn to, understand that the culture and the content I'm watching isn't going to be as conservative or as spiritual, religious as I am. It doesn't need to be. It's when it kind of goes out of its way to be. So, for example, like maybe it's like this movie and a bit of John Wick. For me, I don't have a problem with violence in movies. I love martial arts films. A lot of films have violence. Tarantino, gangster movies, The Godfather. But there's a story there. Those things are trappings of a story. Whereas when it's the main attraction is how I can maim and dismember and with Deadpool 2, I found what's difficult was how much he was gleeful about stabbing people and hurting them. And for me, remember Austin Powers? Is it Austin Powers 2, The Spy Who Shagged Me? Spoiler alert. When a bad guy gets steamrolled, run over by a steamroller. Do you remember, Rowan? This is my as human. He's like, and he gets crushed. And then you see a scene in a phone call and a woman answering and goes, hello, what? And the person saying, sorry, your husband died on the job, i.e. one of the bad guys. She goes, no one thinks about the family. And it was obviously a joke because the whole thing of like, imagine, the deceased henchman's family being told that their husband died at work.
Construction on the Death Star.
Yeah, exactly. With the whole Clerks thing with Kevin Smith. And it's like, it's a fantasy when you just think of that's just a nameless, faceless person, like a stormtrooper or their. But what's interesting with this film is the TVA in the show, I think they're more masked. But in this one, I think you saw or might be the other way around, but I think you just felt like when you see someone's face and they're being like dismembered and you're making a joke of it, I just think it's a bit dark personally. But anyway, speaking of dark and the dark side, I'm going to ask you, Rowan, because you can run it off. Sorry. Did we actually talk about the MCU and its future? We'll save that to the bit about Comic-Con. That makes sense.
What's topic two? What was topic two?
Topic 2 is Star Wars.
Was this Star Trek? Star Wars?
This thing it's got Kirk and Spock. Hey, the Acolyte.
Carl Urban.
Chris Pine. Some might call it the bag of shite. Anyway, so right, first and foremost, you go. You're the guest. Give us your breakdown and your things about the Acolyte.
So my viewing habits are I like to watch it all in one go. So I have the unfortunate sort of fate of that because I consume lots of social media. I read and hear about the backlash or the positivity or negativity about every show I pretty much want to watch, which can be really good, hyped up. But also for this, I was thinking, oh God, this is going to be an absolute. Even because I'm a teacher, one of the students come in and said, "Sir, do you mind spoilers for the Acolyte?" I said, "Go right ahead." He said, "Sir, they've just got witches that give birth to kids in the Force. It's awful." I was like, oh God. And when I got round to watching it, I'm thinking, this is all right. It's just Star Wars. I mean, it's got some good lightsaber battles. It's got the guy from The Good Place. It's got the main guys are absolutely amazing. Apparently, he learned English to be in this. Can't remember that guy. Yeah, that guy on the left.
This guy there, yeah.
He learned English to be in it, which is amazing. It had a Wookiee Force user, like a Jedi Wookiee. I mean.
Don't forget Amanda Steinberg.
She's a good actress. It looked good. It had Star Wars. I mean, I didn't see where the backlash. I genuinely was watching episode after episode, thinking, when's it going to turn to trash? Because but the Book of Boba Fett was trash from the beginning, and it was just okay. But this was good. I enjoyed it. I don't see what the backlash. I don't know what people want from Star Wars, and we'll come on to the politics behind the Jedi in a minute, because me and you have very different opinions on that. But I thought, as genuine as the show, I thought it was really good.
All right, well, so that's a thumbs up. You hear a thumbs up?
Definitely.
So no one can say that I live in an echo chamber. I'm like, no one can say that, because I couldn't be more opposite if I tried. I mean, I really I don't hate this show, because that suggests a strong emotion, and of course hate leads to the dark side, folks. Don't do hate. I just have anger. He's dark. I just feel very disappointed and very meh, because for me, I think for you, I can't say how you feel, but I do think there is something, Rowan, about when someone tells you something is so awful and so bad, and they're really OTT, then when you watch it, there's often the case where you're like, I don't see what the fuss is about. And for me, there was an episode in this that I saw it in real time, but not as quick as a lot of the pundits and the grifters or whatever on YouTube. So the episode 3, which was the most controversial, the power of one, the power of two, the power of many.
Just recap for me what happened in this episode. Literally a 30-second recap.
Yeah, 30-second recap. It's the flashback on Brendok when Soul and Co. first discover the coven of Force Witches.
Oh, is this? And then the further episode gave it from the different point of view.
Yeah, the whole Rashomon Kurosawa thing. Yeah. So for me, that episode, I heard so many things about how it destroys canon, and no, actually, was that and how, because obviously had Kia Di Mundi in it, and that was a problem because he's not meant to be born according to Wikipedia. There's a lot of things that people were really going off on, like particularly some hardcore Star Wars fans, and I'm used to as a above average Star Wars fan that there's everything triggers and people go OTT about it and really upset. So I was like, all right, here we go again. So I watched the episode and I was like, it was bad, and they did some things that I weren't cool with, but it wasn't the end of the world. It wasn't the apocalypse, as a lot of people were going on Twitter and on YouTube about. So I get it from that perspective that some of the responses online was so over the top and so full of vitriol. And I did a video.
Well, we can link back to that in your final topic. We can link back to how people react online later on, can't we?
Yeah. But my point being is, like, I did 2 videos, and the first one I'd watched 6 episodes, and I didn't like the show, but I said that there was aspects I liked. I liked Squid Games guy who played Sol. I liked some of the. Yeah. Same guy. The main guy, Squid guy. Yeah, Squid Games. Yeah. I liked the lightsaber battle. There was aspects that I did like. I just felt it was not delivering on the promise that, remember, Leslie Headland, the showrunner, said this was going to be like a Sith story, the rise of the Sith in secret from a perspective of the dark side. And you'd see it being a dark side, a rise, and this and that, and in an exciting time that'd never been in live action shown before, like before the prequels. I don't believe the show delivered that. By the last episode, it completely, in my opinion, shat the bed. It kind of, it really did some weird, twisty things. So sorry, pooped the bed. So for me,
let's break it down. Let's break it down. The divergence for me and you is that you like the kind of pure George Lucas version of the Jedi, and how they're better, not better in a superior way, but they represent good and what's right, and they fight for justice, etc. Whereas what I think this show has done, and I can see what people don't like it, has made Jedi into a political system which is full of corruption and ambition and people who aren't perfect. Like the main character basically follows his emotions when he shouldn't have. And why I like this, and why I like The Last Jedi and what they did with Luke, is it makes it more realistic. I don't want a fantasy version of the Jedi who are perfect and the good and the bad. I don't want that. I want the Jedi to be realistic, in that there are people in the Jedi who have political ambitions. There are people who make mistakes. There's the one character who kind of gets his mind taken over because he's a bit weak, and the main villain in this guy he doesn't want to kill people, but he will if he has to, versus Darth Vader, who was just out for killing, the Emperor's for killing. So I think they've moved away from George Lucas's very pure rendition of what good and evil, Jedi and Sith, into a more nuanced approach, which I can understand what people don't like, but I think it's far better, because you can't do the George Lucas pure Star Wars out of 3 or 4 films. It's just, there's not enough there. You need to make it more nuanced and interesting, and this is why I like it.
Well, that's a fair point, but I think in terms of pushback, the problem with that is that George Lucas didn't have a view of the Jedi being 100% squeaky clean and innocent because of the prequels. The whole 3 movies was showing how a good institution can lose its way, compromise, and end up sort of being taken out by fascism.
Competence and not controlling the Force. It wasn't because some of them had. It wasn't because Yoda had political ambitions or Mace Windu wanted to rule the Senate. They were doing what they thought was right.
I agree, which makes this even more abominable, because if you're going to set it, you're setting it in a time when the Jedi. You're setting it in a time when the Jedi were good. When the galaxy, there was harmony, and you could still tell a story about a rise of a Sith Lord, but you've sullied the Jedi. And the idea that the Green Woman, the showrunner's wife, is like this sort of senior Jedi that's sort of pulling all the strings and hiding things under the carpet and lying, it essentially bastardized the virtues of the character, because there's a difference between a character making a mistake and being fallible. But we have in this show the good guys actually doing a cover-up. It's more like the police conspiracy theory, conspiracies and covering up and lying and sitting on something that was morally, potentially indefensible. It depends how the show's presenting what they did as morally incomprehensible.
Relatable. You're creating these institutions, organisations, especially in America, that are moral and corrupt, that are supposed to be brilliant, and they're pushing the Jedi towards that. Don't you think that makes it more relevant to today's society rather than just an ambition of what the Jedi should be? Realistically, they're people and they have ambitions, they have feelings.
Yeah, but that's the problem. You do have a little bit of that in Andor. So for me, I really like. Have you seen Andor?
Andor was good because it was amazingly acted and looked great. It wasn't very Star Warsy. It was Star Wars adjacent.
That's how I feel at this. That's my point. That Andor was a great show, but it was great because it was greatly acted and greatly written, but it didn't feel quintessentially Star Wars. I think the problem I have, and we'll get into this more later with IPs, is that people want to take existing franchises and stories and worlds and sully it up. Zack Snyder was in an interview once saying how in his Batman, Snyderverse, he would have had a situation where Batman goes to prison and gets graped by inmates. And I'm like, what the actual heck?
Oh, wow.
No.
It doesn't need to be made. No, that's not needed.
You know what I mean? And look how dark Batman versus Superman was. Well, how can the whole concept of Batman v Superman very quickly is that Superman is this bright, almost patriotic symbol of hope and goodness versus a very complex, not prone to turning off to the dark edge, dark side himself, Batman. So I think Star Wars is supposed to be, look, when the original came out in 1977, most of the movies, like the movie the year before, I think, was Chinatown that won an Oscar. It came out in the 70s are my favorite era of movies. Yeah, The Godfather, Dog's Day Afternoon, Chinatown, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Star Wars was refreshing because it was a very callback to a more innocent, light kind of positive, time where good was good and evil was evil, rather than everything being grey. And I think if you're going to want to explore those things, I'd say explore it in another franchise. Why make Star Wars, which is its sensibilities are fairy tale and whatever? Yes, we grew up, but why do we want to drag what we've grown up with into the complexities of modern life and exploring, sexuality and exploring social politics and all those things?
Because creating a new franchise is so much hard work. Disney don't have the time and the money to spend 20 years creating a new franchise. They just have to use what they've got, which is Star Wars. I remember when me and you used to talk about Star Wars, and I went to like a game show with one of our friends, and I bought the VHSs. And back then, I remember we used to chat Star Wars, but at no point did I think it would run for another 30 plus years from there. And you should see the amount of Lego Star Wars I've got, and like I've got these, I've got Star Wars I've got Star Wars T-shirts. How much money have I put into Star Wars and you put in Star Wars over the years? It's even if Disney want to get away from that, they can't. There's no money to be made elsewhere. This is why I think the MCU was such a revelation. They took. This is why I think Disney thought they were on to a winner. But I think the MCU has made lots of money in terms of films. But in terms of outside merchandising, T-shirts, games, Lego, everything, Star Wars still reigns supreme by a country mile. And that's why you're never going to see the end of Star Wars content, because even if it's Star Wars content that people don't like, it still means I walk into Sainsbury's and there's still Star Wars stuff for me to buy.
Yeah, which is why it's going to be the franchise that never dies. It's going to, everything you said is true. And I think, but that's where it's the cynicism. Sorry, just fix my mic a little bit. That's where I find it as a major problem, because it's not about when George Lucas made one of the best deals in movie history in film, where he basically he made a deal that he kept the merchandise rights, which were nothing at the time, but has become more money off the merchandise than the movies, even by a country mile. The problem is that he created Star Wars with the desire to tell. He wanted to make a Flash Gordon film, but he couldn't get the rights. So there was no guarantee of its success. In fact, it was considered a failure when it was shot, except I think Steven Spielberg was the only one who believed in it. and and Alan Ladd Jr.,
Oh,
who was the head of Fox.
Like he showed it to them all with no score, and
Yeah.
Steven Spielberg was the only one who could see it, the vision, and it's like this is why Steven Spielberg is still the man, because he saw what no one else could see, and then John Williams put the score on it. Because it's not good without a score. I don't know why score changes that film so much, but it does.
It's the magic of all the ingredients put together. The score, the fast editing, because his wife, Marcia Lucas, saved it in the editing, and the other editor, I can't remember his name. But it's like there was not a cynical approach to it. It was literally, he put everything, blood, sweat, and tears, a gamble in telling a story he believed in. Now, the owners of it, I mean, Marvel with Kevin Feige, he's the closest thing in a very corporate money-making machine that the Marvel Studios is. He is a true believer. He's a true comic book guy. He was there with Fox when the first X-Men movies. He's the closest to someone who's the vanguard of the storytelling. And he, as much as it's a commercial product, he wants the storytelling there. With Lucasfilm, they don't have that. Kathleen Kennedy is one of the best producers of all time, but she will do whatever she needs to do with creatives to have the experience of the filmmaking process. She doesn't care about lore. She hasn't got an interest in what Star Wars actually is. She was doing a survey. Oh, what is Star Wars? She was more interested, like with Rian Johnson. I think The Last Jedi is a good film. It's just a misplaced in the saga where it is in terms of the story it was telling and the tone. It was a postmodern movie. And I think that's an example there with Star Wars where the further you move away from George and the architecture he set up is the less, I think, OGs like me are not going to be feeling it.
Yeah. I don't think George was ever in it for the money, so it didn't matter that if he didn't create marketable content, as long as it was content he could get on board with. Although, but by the time he was making episode 1, he was a multi-near billionaire. He didn't need to do it, and he just did what he did. But I think now, when they pitched the Acolyte, there would have been a team of people thinking, what T-shirts can we sell? What bobbleheads can we sell? What Lego can we sell? What's going to be marketable from this? And that's sad that they have to do that. And I think, look, you've got one of these. I think that's their biggest success because it's the most marketable object they've made in the last 5-10 years.
Then riddle me this. Yeah, riddle me this, Rowan. You know, you mentioned you brought up Grogu, Baby Yoda. The Mandalorian. Seasons 1 and 2, at least, were universally loved. Season 3 is a little mixed, and I think that's partly because they brought a lot of the Clone Wars stuff with the Mandalorians in Bo-Katan, which a lot of audiences who are mainstream like, huh? Who's this chick? And who's this? What's this? But the Acolyte had a budget of $180 million. Obscene amount for the show.
How many episodes? 6 episodes?
It's only like 8. It's only I think 8 episodes. And you look at it, not being funny, you don't look at that and think, "Wow, that was money well spent."
Not and
I'm thinking, and when you think of it, when you really break it down, again, obviously I'm on the more centre right, faith, etc. But even parking it to one side, a lot of the themes in the Acolyte are niche. Leslie Headland, and I've read reports and stuff, was very clear, the showrunner, that she wanted to tell a very queer story and queer affirming story. She wanted to talk about, she saw it as like Frozen, and obviously these sisters, there's elements of that about one of the sisters maybe being, identifying as LGBTQ, and all of that. Again, perfectly fine. I don't have a problem with storytellers wanting to share things and their own worldview and perspective, things like that. Where I thought I have a problem is that it's like the sandbox theory. You were given a budget of a movie in one of the biggest universally beloved franchises of all time, and you want to tell a very intimate, particular story that kind of takes away from the universal nature of it, a simple story, and you want to put in themes that are very socio-political. You cast people very publicly who represent diversity or DEI. You go on the junket and make jokes. Oh, R2D2s and C3PO's gay. You make jokes and you make, you talk about innuendos and the characters, even with Quamir and Osha, you basically do the shipping thing that they did with Rey and Kylo Ren, but you double down on it, where it's like the whole, someone who would be talked about in Me Too and being like, a toxic male is like the love interest and the one that pretty much influences your main character. I'm like, how does all that make sense frankly, in an IP that's meant to be, fairy tale and family friendly?
See, I think if you release the same 6-7 episodes, but you don't put her out doing any publicity, and you don't address any of these issues, you never talk about these issues, and you put this out, I think the show gets a better reception. From what you're saying, because I avoided a lot of this, it sounds like she was the problem. I don't think anyone had a problem with a covenant of witches using the Force. That's completely Star Wars, brilliant. Love that sort of stuff. I think it's the fact that then she went out and you can cast 3 black people, 3 Asian people, and 1 white person, and if you never address it, people just think it's Star Wars. I never thought, oh god, look, they've got some Asians in there. Oh, that's good. I just consumed it Star Wars. Like no one, like Lando Calrissian was black. I didn't think he was black. He's just a good character because George Lucas didn't come out and say, I'm going to make sure there's a black character in Star Wars. It's like, you don't need to. And you don't need to address these issues. And I understand that she comes from a generation where she feels she needs to address these issues. But I think doing it is better than addressing it. I think putting out a progressive storyline with progressive people in it and lots of diversity, and don't address it, because as soon as you address it, you enable the right wing. You enable the people who hate that sort of stuff. And if you talk about it, it empowers you. No, you don't. You empower the wrong people to go, I told you. It's just they've only done it because of this. They've only done it because of that. They only put her in charge because Kathleen Kennedy's like, don't talk about it. Don't address it. Just release content. But I think Disney...
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, Rowan. But, obviously you might guess I'm a gentleman of colour myself. So I tick one of the boxes. But even without the noise in the junket and the circuit... Yeah. I'm black. Be like, see no evil, hear no evil. I'm black, Richard Pryor. Huh? I'm black. When watching the show, even without all that noise, it's quite clear majority of the characters who are significant in it are non-white. The main significant characters that are effectual or are significant are predominantly female. Carrie-Anne Moss's character, May, Osha, Jackie. The male characters are either her suspect, like Yord is a bit of an idiot and thinks he's like the hero and he gets yeeted. Sol, what they did to Sol, he was the one character that I really dug and really felt, and a connection to. And they made him look like a pedo in the 7th episode. I want a Padawan. I feel a connection to Osha. I need her. See, and I don't think they even realize how dodgy they did him dirty, man. Yeah. And then when she hears what he did, and he's about to tell her he loves her, which just doubles down on the imprint. Remember when we went to see Attack of the Clones, Rowan? Me, you, and Ashley.
Yep.
And it was in the Sariki, the Odeon. And when Anakin has the nightmares, Mom, no. It was, we got a laugh. Remember there was a laugh in the cinema?
Yeah.
Because the juxtaposition, you had him in bed, just turning around saying, oh, no, having a nightmare. And then the next scene, you see them on the balcony and Padme's in her dressing gown. The way those scenes cut together wasn't meant to suggest anything, but it was just comical in that it was almost like, people took it as a raunchy scene. You remember?
Yeah. Okay, here's hypothetical for you. That Disney are making episodes 1, 2, and 3 now, and they're getting to casting. Do they cast a white lady, a white man, another white man? Because it was all we had Ewan McGregor, Liam Neeson, Natalie Portman, lots of white people. Like you look through that cast, it's pretty much you had racial stereotypes of Asian people and a couple of black people. If they're casting that now, what do you think Disney do? Do they follow that, or do they go DEI or whatever?
The Phantom Menace. Sorry, it's gonna be. as is, for all the reasons you pointed out, would never be made like that today. And I think that's such a shame. Because even
white man and a white woman.
Yeah, even the Obi-Wan show that was pitted as the rematch, which I was against, by the way, initially, but I was won over. The rematch between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader post Mustafar and pre Death Star. Again, it was some canonical gymnastics. By the time it was coming out, I was like, I love you, McGregor, like you said earlier. I'm all in. Yeah. They brought in the Reva character. And I want to see more black actors get their credit and get high profile gigs, of course, and all of that. But they set her up. And I think that's where the hire was such a problem, because a lot of people didn't like the character of Reva, not because she was black, but because she was hogging screen time. People were sold on Obi-Wan and Vader. I get thematically, because she was an Inquisitor, she represented the idea of one of the stabbed young ones that Anakin would have done. So the revenge thing and the idea of the consequences of the failure. So I understand it as a storyteller, what it was trying to do. But then you cast somebody that brings it. People already feel the character is unnecessary. Then you add someone who is, a minority, and a female, not just black, but black and female. So then it became a whole thing of are you trying to can't you just deal with two white men? Is that it? Even though one of the white men is in a black armor, you don't even see skin through 95% of the show. So I think that kind of thinking, with the Acolyte, it was so loaded. It was so front loaded with minorities, be it ethnic, gender, and even some that appeared to be, LGBTQI plus, which is cool. But when you front load all of it with it, then you have a theme about the characters that probably would traditionally be seen as on the dark side, like the witches, and Quamia, the stranger, being the heroes. Like when Osha kills her father figure, Sol, she gets a hero score and close up.
Yeah.
She gets treated like she's this a heroic thing, and then afterwards, and the sisters, we're going to part, and then I'm going to go off with this guy who murdered my friend and another Jedi. But don't worry, because Jedi are obviously, you've had to make the Jedi look bad to bring up the evil characters to be the protagonists. And that's what I mean, Ro. I'm not talking about, the Jedi are perfect, but you've had to literally besmirch what was seen as classically good in the franchise to piggy up and leg up the villains and somehow make us feel that they are good. Someone who murdered without any kind of thought. A character that flip-flops and says, and then she's looking down, not his lightsaber, but another saber, literally in that episode. When he comes out, you bring in sexual friction into it, where he's coming out of the water and he's naked. Did you really need that? And that's the thing. It's out of place for that franchise. But I get you. They're trying to get a new audience and go with what everything else is doing.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, for good or bad, the youth of today are very different to when we were growing up, and that is lots of good things about that, lots of bad things about that. But that also has to be reflected in media, doesn't it? In that we're never going to see the kind of media that appeals to our sensibilities unless we're watching a show aimed at 40 to 50-year-old men who live in South East London, like that new Danny Dyer. But what, I mean, have you watched the new Star Trek with the woman from The Walking Dead?
Oh, by the way, just a quick shout out to this guy. I did like him.
Did you watch
Darth Thirst Trap? Sorry, Star Trek.
No, did you ever watch that guy from The Good Place? Did you ever watch him in The Good Place?
No, I didn't actually. I heard he's good in it.
He's funny, but when he was in this, it was like, oh my god, because he plays a fool in that show, and he comes on and he's so good in this. All right, back to Star Trek. Right, have you watched the recently new Star Trek with the woman from The Walking Dead?
Which one? Which is a woman? Because I haven't really watched much of The Walking Dead. I saw when it was Discovery. That the last Star Trek show that I watched was Discovery, but this is a spin-off, isn't it? From
yeah. It's got the most diverse cast you could possibly want, and which is kind of good, but it doesn't add anything to the show. But I think Star Wars is guilty of this. It's virtue signaling. Like executives want to go look. Kids like to see openly gay couples, and kids want to see lots of people from lots of different ethnicities, and they don't want to see white men. So we're going to have no white men. We're going to have lots of diversity. We're going to have an openly gay couple, and we're going to have a transgender person. We're going to have someone who's non-binary, and what we're going to do is we're going to put them out and advertise them. We're going to put them on they're going to make sure they're going to be on Jimmy Kimmel. They're going to be on Jonathan Ross, and they're going to openly talk about how great we are as employers and how we're so diverse. And it's like, your main audience does not care. I will watch anything you put out as Star Wars. I want to enjoy it, but I don't really want to be lectured on about how diverse you are and how great. Just put it out there and make it the norm, so that in 5 years' time, the norm is to have a completely diverse cast. You don't talk about people's ethnicities, genders, non-binary, whatever, and it's just taken as norm. And that's what they should do. But Marvel and Disney can't do that because they have to be seen to be waving the diversity flag.
Yeah, because they've politically died in. Like Avengers 1 couldn't make Phase 1 now.
Yeah.
It'd be too white, too female, too white, so male.
Scarlett Johansson, Nighthawk, Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Mark Ruffalo. You're talking 6 or 7, 8 white Hollywood actors. Are you going to get away with that now? No, I don't think you will.
No. And the weird thing is that I don't watch Avengers and think, oh man, I'm not represented. They're too white. It doesn't dawn on me in my head. But like now, everyone's so triggered by that.
No, I think they want to be triggered. I think if they took away the internet and they watched it with their friends, they wouldn't even discuss this. But when they go on it's a symptom of our societies that you go online, and what I don't like is that the sites that culminate media, what they do, they go online and they find 4 people that criticise the Acolyte. They write a story about the fans criticising it, and then people comment on that article. And then people write about the article about so one media site writes an article and another media site writes about the article referencing, and then you've got more people. It's the equivalent of 4 blokes down a pub complaining about Star Wars, and then that being escalated to a global everyone hates Star Wars, and that's how the internet works. But these sites have to get clicks, so they have to start trawling Reddit message boards, finding the 100 people who didn't like the Acolyte, and they find the 3 blokes who said something awful about transgender people, or they don't like these non-binary lesbians taking over Star Wars, and the media sites are worse than the original people because they give them a voice. Those people were just stuck on a subreddit with 500 subscribers. Their voice was going nowhere. But all these media sites, they blow it up.
It's what happened with Ghostbusters 2016, mate. Like that still goes down on history as the worst trailer, like the most bombed trailer, most thumb downs on YouTube, to the point where they even, I think, removed the thumb down on YouTube. And because the Ghostbusters fans are deterring a little bit, are a very passionate bunch. I mean, I love the original Ghostbusters films. I wouldn't say I'm a massive fan, but I'm above average. They've been talking about Ghostbusters 3 for donkey's years. Long, even before, bless him, Harold Ramis passed away, and they weren't able to do it in that way. Yeah. So when they came out with Paul Feig's 2016 version, with not just a reboot when people wanted a sequel, but all women, and it's the same thing. Hardcore fans, and I think even the mainstream, were like, we don't want this. But suddenly it became because you're sexist. Because ironically, they still make the one black Ghostbuster blue collar worker who don't understand anything they're talking about, like the new Winstonette. So they're that progressive, but the black one still is the dumbest in the group.
Yeah, but what I don't like is that Ghostbusters, right? It wasn't a very good film. I still enjoyed it, and if people of my age didn't like it because they're women, they're entitled to that opinion. But what the media sites then did is blew that up to that was the story about the film. Middle-aged white man doesn't like women taking over his franchise. How disgusting was it? And then people would write about the article.
Exactly. But to add to your point, you're absolutely right, Ron. But it was a concerted effort with the media and the studios. Because the studios started to say, rather than their film is trash, they were saying they were using it as a political lightning rod, especially around the whole Hillary Trump thing, saying the Ghostbusters movie is all about being, you're on the right side of progressivism and history, because they could literally divide if you love the new Ghostbusters, you're a Democrat. If you hated it, you're MAGA, and all the negative things that come with it. And you're absolutely right. That's when the media and the political game use IPs as some kind of culture war, flagging our last topic, and it just sucks. And I think Star Wars has been used that as a big bat to gaslight fans and thinking that they're not progressive, because they don't like the content.
This is why I think media companies are clever. They know, Disney know that if we've got some cultural issues here that the right wing are not going to like, what we do was we mobilise the left. We say, look at all these great issues, and then you can not like this show, but you have to accept that it's good because it's done all these great things for society. And the left wing, virtual thing, they have to get involved. And then what ends up, if anyone who doesn't like the Acolyte, it's because you don't like lesbians, or you don't like people of colour, or you don't like ethnicity. You can never just not like. It's gone beyond the point where, like Ghostbusters, I didn't like that because it's a bit of a boring film. No, it's because you're a misogynist. You didn't like women taking over your franchise as a boy. You're disgusting. And I think that the film companies, the left-leaning liberal movie companies, are doing this on purpose. They're creating culture wars because it generates interest. And the worst thing that can happen to your product, no one's talking about it. If no one's talking about your product, you're done for. You're better off.
Did you ever see that Netflix film about? Did you ever see that Netflix show? That film? Sorry, not show. The documentary about Facebook and social media. It exactly hinges on your point that the algorithms deliberately trigger you and send you things that will get you upset because you'll spend more hours on it. You'll comment. They curate it according to your trigger points. And I think, and obviously the studios have, so the studios and the media obviously have followed that algorithmic pattern by making sure that you're going to have a strong reaction from the PR campaign all the way through the show or film's release, because apathy is the biggest enemy.
You can argue that's why they put the director of the Acolyte out to generate this sort of interest. Don't keep her hidden. Put her out. She's going to wind up the right wing. That's going to mobilise the left wing. The right wing are going to hate watch it. The left wing are going to love it because it speaks to them, and we've got more viewers. And I just enjoy my content.
Yes.
I just want to enjoy my content. Sometimes I find it hard because I like consuming positive content. This is why I like Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith is a positive person, very crude and rude, and his films aren't very good anymore. But he's a positive person.
I love Kevin Smith,
and that's why I like you, Tony, because you're a positive person. I don't want to speak to people who are just.
Thank you.
This is crap. This is awful. It's like, why is it awful? What? Don't watch it then. If you didn't like the Acolyte, like Jeff Kanata from the Sash Filmcast, he stops watching thing after 1 or 2 episodes, and there have been a couple of times where he's gone back. Oh, there was like a show called Dark Matter with Joel Egerton that was awful after the first 2 episodes, and then by the time it was amazing. But I only watched it because Jeff Kanata said to me, Mr. Positivity, watch it to the end. And same with you, Tony. If you said to me, watch the Acolyte to episode 7 or 8, I will watch it. Because positivity has to rule. There's too much negativity going around the world.
I really appreciate it, Rowan. That's very, very kind. And I think my ethos, even with this channel, is to have opinions and have genuine, authentic, strong opinions, but more skewing to constructive and positive than a rant. Because some of these pundits that I watch and I used to really, really watch and really like, I won't name call, particularly around the Acolyte, I think this has been what started to turn me off from a lot of their content, because they went from disliking the Acolyte and bringing up the legitimate concerns and issues to it being almost a manifesto of how much we hate, the industry and, Disney, Star Wars and just the left. Again, things that had valid points, but they'd literally do an Avengers team up, a lot of these pundits, and they just spend the whole time slagging off, bashing. And it got to a point where they were even saying mean things about some of the cast. And I was like, whoa, hang on, man. This isn't, it ain't fun no more. Forget that. So your Star Wars love. So for you, this show, go put a button on it. You enjoyed it. And I think I envy you that you enjoyed it. Because I wanted to enjoy it. I don't hate watch things. I didn't watch the show like, I don't mind the Book of Boba Fett. I know it's not very good, but it brought out the 5-year-old in me who watched Return of the Jedi, or 4-year-old at the time. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff in that. It's even got a Rancor from Return of the Jedi in it.
Bit of fun.
Yeah. So for me, when Star Wars goes a bit fun and a bit goofy and whatever, I can say, okay, it's bringing out the little kid in me. I think where the Acolyte is a trend that I don't want to follow, again, try not to bash it again too much. I don't want it to be a skin job, the skin of Star Wars, but using it to tell very on-trend. Yeah. Even the fact that, a perfect example, when they played that track, that R&B track, at the end of on the credits.
Yeah. I was like, I'll give you that. Yeah. Just in classical John Williams would have been much better. Just that, no need.
Yeah, it's like just playing create new toys. Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon? I haven't seen it and I don't wish to, but that was originally pitched as a Star Wars, in the Star Wars franchise. And I'm like, I'm so glad. I'm like, please keep Zack Snyder away. I think he's done some good stuff, but his sensibilities are too emo, too fetishistic, too dark, I think. Hence, like what he did with DC. I don't want him playing with those toys. It's like he's going to start hacking off limbs on them, other than wrists.
You put a kibosh on one of my extra topics because I was going to talk about that, but if you haven't seen the films, we'll leave it.
I can't remember. And I mean, like, so in short, for me, Star Wars is best when it stays true, as close to Lucas's kind of vision for it. Otherwise, it's cosplay. Otherwise, it's playing with toys and fan fiction. And I'm like, I know, Ryan, you're right, Ryan. They're not going to do it because they've got $1 billion franchise. So rather than create something new and give these creatives full license to make their own games and play with their own toys, they're going to use existing ones because it secures that people are going to watch. And like you said, if they mess it up or they do things that the core audience dislikes, they'll just call us toxic and all sorts of pejorative names because we're on the wrong side of progress.
Agreed.
All right. Any other? Well, we'll move on. And do forget. I'm used to doing this solo, so do cut in whenever you feel, because I can talk for Britain. Number 3. You'll like this one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's put it up. So here we go.
Hey.
Good.
Right.
San Diego Comic-Con.
My favourite, I think Comic-Con is like some like the whole H moments where stuff comes out and everything. And the Robert Downey Jr., we'll come on to it, but it was a Comic-Con moment, wasn't it? When he pulled the mask off. Come on, that was a moment.
Yep. Yeah. It was a moment. But you probably jumped the gun a bit with that, but the setup.
You and our friend Ashley were way into comics as a kid. I used to occasionally read your comics and Ashley's comics, but I never really. I'd go to the comic shop and read them. But I listened to like a podcast where there's a guy who owns a comic shop, and he says about like it's less about comics, or it's more about kind of media now, and which is fair enough. It's only sort of Comic-Con in name, but I think it represents lots of positivity. Positive from cosplay, that you get lots of the actors, they want to come there because the fans are respectful. I think it's generally one of the most positive, kind of refreshing, nice things. I don't get the impression that Robert Downey Jr. is there to make $50 signing autographs. He's there because he wants to please the fans. It's a fan fest, and I love it.
I agree. Let's not jump the gun though, because I think there's quite a few things, and the RDJ is kind of the big one at the end. So hold that thought. Let's try to do it in some kind of order. So I'll skim through Thunderbolts. Captain America. Interested?
Oh, what with Harrison Ford? No. I'm glad that. I'm glad that Anthony Mackie's getting his own film, so he can have a go at old Tom Holland now. But there's only one Captain America, and it's a white person. Oh, sorry, Chris Evans.
Racist! I'm going to cancel you out of this show.
Harrison Ford's there for the paycheck. He's obviously got mad bills to pay.
But at least he's having fun with it. I mean, it felt like he had to be dragged to return to Star Wars as Han Solo.
Well,
and I never get it, man.
They backed a truck of money up and dumped it, and there's £20 million.
Yeah.
Worth of work. Oh, yeah.
I like happy Harrison Ford, where he feels like he's having fun.
Yeah.
And
there was a period where, in interviews and everything, he didn't enjoy publicising any of his films. And I like the Harrison Ford of Indiana Jones and Star Wars and Air Force One. I like that, and I don't like the one of the last 15, 20 years where I remember seeing interviews for Crystal Skull, and you don't want to be here, do you? They just don't money.
Well, the irony is he really wanted to do the Indiana Jones movies and stuff. He was constantly saying, when we making it, because he loves that character.
He wanted to make a good one, not a bad one. Have you seen the latest Indiana Jones? Well,
I haven't. It's on my Disney Plus list. I've been. Anyway, we'll go there at some point.
Once you've seen that, we'll do a podcast about that.
Can't wait.
The guy on the right. Oh, he's a quality actor.
So he's going to be.
Some good actors in there. That's good.
This guy's good.
That's a quality cast of actors.
Yeah. He was the lead. He's going to be the leader. He was in the Ed Norton Hulk movie, which is canon.
Yes,
yeah, so that's good. See, I do like Anthony Mackie. I really like him.
Brilliant actor.
And I like him as Sam. I liked him as a Falcon. I liked him as Sam Wilson. And it was a great moment in Endgame when he inherits the shield. And I actually quite like the Bucky and Captain America and the Falcon show, whatever it's called. I liked it. I was not looking forward to this movie. Besides of what I've heard on the internet, I've never really been feeling a new Captain America. I just think it's for me, he's always going to be Steve Rogers. The way you go with a Sam Captain America, and it is in the comics, so I'm not bashing it from that perspective, but the only way you're really going to go is you're going to go with exploring what the TV show did, the Disney Plus show, is how a black man can represent America. And I feel that story is quite obvious, and I think it's quite telegraphed, and it moves away